Hey guys, Erin here with Southern Girl Exotics. Welcome back to my channel. So I want to do a fun little video on Gargoyle gecko care. Gargoyle geckos are my top favorite species that I breed and I keep. I think they are such fascinating, beautiful animals. I've spent a lot of time with them for the last several years, both keeping them, breeding them, caring for them, raising them up. So I have a little bit of knowledge on it, and I just kind of wanted to share with you guys how I keep them, how I care for them, what works for me. I think it's super important that we understand that everybody can keep them a little bit differently and still have successful keeping experience. But if we don't have the diverse information out there, then people don't have the opportunity to pick and choose what best works for them and their animals. So that's what I'm hoping to do, is hopefully my way of keeping them is going to be a little bit different from somebody else's, so that there are some options out there so that people can pick and choose what's best for them, what works best in their environment, their home, their area, as well as what is best for their animal. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video. You know the deal. If you like it, hit the like button, subscribe, and I am going to try to drop videos every Sunday. I said Friday, but weekends are looking like it's going to be when I can edit. So it's probably not going to be until every Sunday. Either way, if you want to see more videos, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. All right, guys, so let's talk about husbandry. Husbandry is the care requirements for the animals that you are taking care of. If you do not understand an animal's care requirements, you are not going to have a positive experience. You most likely will kill it, but it certainly is not going to thrive in your care. A lot of what we can learn about an animal's care requirements is, one, going to be about their anatomy, and two, is going to be knowing where they come from in the wild. So let's talk about humidity for these guys. We know they come from New Caledonia. We know New Caledonia is an island. Typically, islands mean that they are tropical animals. We can get online, we can do our own research, and we can find that over in New Caledonia, the humidity range is typically between the low 70s to high 70s, low 80s. So that gives us a perfect idea of how we need to keep them in captivity. Now, as far as what your routine is going to be, everybody's is going to be different. You may live in a more humid state. You may live in a more humid home. Your home could be less or more humid than your own neighbors. So everybody is going to have their own routine, and it's something that you're going to kind of have to learn as you go. Of course, there's different tricks to the trade that people try, whether that's buying a misting system so that you don't have to worry about it at all, besides just filling your mister every couple days, or people might want to spray daily. For some people, that's just interaction with their animal that they enjoy doing, so you may want to mist daily. I have too big of a collection to mist daily, and I also have too big of a collection for me to try and spend money on several mist kings to mist all of these enclosures for me. So the trick of my trade is, again, as much as I've mentioned it, Zilla's Jungle Mix. I love that peat moss mix. I keep it saturated. I'll saturate it once a week, either the end of the week or the beginning of the week, and then I only have to mist twice a week. So it's very important that you guys give these guys a dry out period after you mist. So if you're going to do it once a day, say, then you want to make sure overnight it is drying out, and then you don't mist again until the following day. If you keep these guys too wet, or they never get a dry out period, what's going to happen is you're going to run into bacterial infections, skin issues. Some can even get sick from it, respiratory problems. So you want to make sure you have a dry out period. Again, what works for me may not work for you, and that's okay. But there are several different options, and really until you get your animal and you see what works best for you, you're not really going to know what the best routine is. But again, there's several different ways you can keep that humidity up, but you want to make sure that you're keeping it between 60 and 80%. Now let's talk about temperature. Gargoyle geckos come from New Caledonia, like we discussed. If we go online and we look at the overall temperatures over there, we'll find that these guys live on a high day is going to be around 88, 90 degrees. And it can get as low as the 60s for the coldest. So typically it's probably around 70 to 80 degrees, 85 degrees. So that gives us a range of how we need to keep these guys in captivity. So we like to say that these guys can live at room temperature. Well, room temperature for most people is within that range, but room temperature can absolutely be different depending on the person. Some people may freeze out their houses and be below 60. Others may have a terrarium they live in and it's over 90. These guys are more heat sensitive than they are cold sensitive. So contrary to what we've always learned, that reptiles thermoregulate, so we always have to add heat, I recommend that you do not add heat for these guys unless your home is regularly below 65 degrees. And I don't mean just in the winter, I mean on a regular basis, your home stays that chilly. Most homes don't during the summer. But you run a much higher risk of killing these guys with heat than you do by letting them get a little chilly. But the ideal temperature you want to keep them at is going to range between 70 and 85 degrees. That's a very comfortable temperature for these guys. All right, now let's talk about handling. Can you handle these guys? Do they tolerate it well? I personally think these guys, especially once they become adults, tolerate handling a lot better than crested geckos do. These guys are a lot calmer. They're not as spastic. Like any nocturnal species that's sleeping in the afternoon, if you spook them when you go to get them out of the cage, absolutely they're going to run around, they're going to be a little scared. But these guys, in my opinion, calm down a lot quicker, and they have a good girthy size about them, which makes them an even better, in my opinion, animal to handle. But I think they are great for handling. Next, let's talk about diet. What do these guys eat? Just like crested geckos, they have the exact same diet. They do eat fruits and plants out in the wild, and they can eat the commercial crested gecko diet. Different brands are on the market, several different brands now. It used to just be Pangea and Repashy. Those are both the ones that I recommend if you don't have a problem with ordering online, either from their site or from Amazon. Now there is Zumed, there's Flukers, there's Eritronic, there's all kinds out there now. But those are the two brands that I highly recommend. I actually only use Pangea. I like the way it smells. You also get a better feeding response from your Gargs with Pangea because it does smell a lot sweeter, and I think it tastes a lot sweeter for them. But again, it's up to you. You can do your research. They're both, in my opinion, identical in quantity. Now, the difference between gargoyle geckos and crested geckos. Crested geckos have flat plant-based teeth. Gargoyle geckos have evolved to have sharp little carnivorous needle-like teeth. Well, that kind of tells us that these guys have evolved to be bigger protein eaters. So even though the complete diets, crested gecko complete diets, have bugs in them, I think it's very, very important that you offer these guys bugs at least once a week. Now, all of my Gargs get bugs twice a week. But again, if you only want to do it once a week, it's up to you. You don't have to, though. I'm not saying that you absolutely have to give them bugs. However, it is a great source of protein for them. They're going to grow a little bit quicker. They're going to be a little bit hardier in size, more plump, which I like my animals to be very healthy, as well as it's great enrichment. It gives these guys the opportunity to hunt in their enclosures and to have different smells and things like that going on for enrichment. But again, totally up to you. Now, as far as a feeding schedule, that is going to depend from home to home as well, and from keeper to keeper. I personally feed my adult Gargs every 2 days, and I feed my babies every other day. My breeders get fed every other day as well. And then I rotate the feeding, so I will do crested gecko diet one day, and then I will do the crickets the following day. Now, again, on live feeders, that's totally up to you. You can try different feeders. I just have the most success with crickets. I have tried dubia roaches. Gargs aren't real big on eating on tongs. I honestly don't have any that will eat off tongs like my crested geckos or my Leachianus geckos. So crickets and dubias are really like your only two commercial feeders out there that, one, are quick enough that'll stimulate a feeding response out of these guys, but two, that are, feasible in my opinion to feed. So you can try either one. Crickets just work for me, and I tend to get a great feeding response out of all of my Gargs when it's time for crickets. But again, that's totally up to you if you want to do live feeders, but I absolutely recommend that you do. All right, guys, so let's take a little look at my husbandry and how I do things and what size enclosures I use for the different size gargoyle geckos. Again, everybody is going to be a little bit different, and that's perfectly fine. This is what I know works for me, what I feel comfortable with doing to make sure that my animals have efficient space, as well as I'm able to give them enough attention that I am paying close enough attention to know if anything's off or not working. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I use sterile bins for all of my hatchlings. It's super important to me that I have always have eyes on my hatchlings. That way, and especially my grow outs that I'm selling, that way I always know ahead of time if one of them is looking sickly or if they've gone off food or if they're not pooping correctly, so that I am never in a position that I send an unhealthy animal to anybody or list an unhealthy animal. So for me, I just think it also works better for newer keepers if they do it this way. Because if you don't have experience and you don't know what you're supposed to be looking for or how this particular animal is supposed to be behaving, it's a lot easier if you have a sterile setup for the first few months, that you can easily keep an eye on your animal and make sure it's functioning the way that it needs to. We don't talk about it enough anymore in the hobby, but quarantine used to actually be a thing where people did for up to 90 days when they got a new animal. Now it's like it's just done away with that. People just don't even talk about it. It's the same concept. You build a sterile bin that your animal goes into so that you can monitor it closely, but it also is in favor of new keepers because it gives you the opportunity to really learn about your animal, get comfortable with husbandry on a smaller scale before you throw it into a bigger enclosure and then have to start dealing with substrate, keeping an eye on its function and its, pooping and eating, etc., etc. So anyways, I'm going to start with my hatchlings and I'm going to show you how I keep them. We'll move on to my grow out size and then to my adults and then to my breeding groups and trios, what size I keep them in. So let's start right here with my hatchling rack. So I jumped on the fad that everybody was in about getting the shoe boxes, and I've got to be honest, I absolutely love these. I've upgraded these from 6-quart bins. 6-quart bins are a lot smaller. I'll put in the subtitles what the actual measurements is on these, but this also gives me a little more room to grow out some animals to a bigger size before they either have to go into 10 gallons or they have to go into 15-quart tubs. But it's a very basic, simple, sterile setting. I like to use paper towels. I specifically like to use solid white. I don't like when it has a bunch of decals and detail on it, because then I can't clearly see if something's going wrong with the poop. I can't see if maybe there's bugs or whatever. I just like to have it white. I can clearly see. I always add 1 pool noodle to each of them. We also get a couple little plants, and my little ones love to be hidden up in the plants. They get a little water dish, and then when it's feeding day, which tomorrow is feeding day, I just cleaned out all their bins today. Tomorrow's feeding day, they'll get a little cap of food. So we just had some little ones hatch while I was making this video for y'all. So we're going to get them set up in our shoe boxes. So we've got our little paper towel in here, just misted it. This will dry out shortly. I like now, especially with these little ones, to put the pool noodles so they don't all the way go across, and they can actually double up as a hide because they will hide in there. So we're just going to kind of put this back here like that. Give it a little foliage like that. Let's see this little guy off. There you go, buddy. I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to just drop you. Go ahead, get your first little run in. Oh, we made him mad. We made him mad. But these are a great size for this size animal. Alright, so in those hatchling racks, I typically keep any animal that is a newer hatchling up to about 12 grams. Then it's going to be time to move them either into a 15-quart or into one of these 10 gallons on its side. Now, I prefer the 10 gallons on its side, of course, because they have more height. But I don't have room to do that for every individual. So typically once my grow outs get to about 20 grams, 25 grams, I'll move them in here right before they go into one of the bigger enclosures. So 10-gallon aquariums are 12 by 20 by 10, I believe. So they're getting 20 inches in height. So that's almost the equivalent of a 12 by 12 by 18. So I really like these. And I buy the converted fronts for them, the iHeart Gecko's fronts, and I really love those as well. But I'm going to show you a little bit about how I set these up, what I use, as well as what size animal I put in here. All right, so we'll just take a look at this one. They get pool noodles, 1 pool noodle, 2 pool noodle. We will do cork bark in some of them. I like these plants I got on Amazon, and I can just poke them into the pool noodle and they give a lot of coverage. I like to use the Zilla's Jungle Mix. It is a peat moss mix. It holds moisture really, really well. It doesn't have all the long strand husk like the cocoa fiber has. I don't have a problem with it molding like I have with the cocoa fiber in the past. And like I said, the main thing is that it holds moisture well so that I don't have to mist every day. With a collection this size, it is just too hard to mist every day. But these are perfect for my grow outs. To kind of give you an idea of what a grow out size is, this fella right here is probably right at about 22 grams, and he is perfect for a 10-gallon. It gives him plenty of room to climb around, and he can get plenty of exercise. It's also easy to maneuver because it's not too massive, and he can comfortably live in there for a good another 10 to 15 grams. All right, guys, so these are my 18 by 12 by 18s. I love these enclosures. I got them from Gecko Junkie. They have perfect height, they have perfect width, and they are super deep. I love that because typically we lose the depth and that exposes our animals more. So then we think that we have to give them more height, but they really can't hide if they want to hide if we have narrow enclosures that are just tall. So I really, really love these enclosures. They're also perfect for gargoyle gecko adults that are anywhere between 55 and below. These cages are fully efficient. It gives them plenty of space to climb, get around, exercise, explore. So I really, really am happy using these for single adult gargoyle geckos. All right, so let's take a little look in here. These are all females that are done with the breeding season. As you can see, they all will get pool noodles. Most of them will get a cork bark. I gotta add some for them. They deserve some, so we'll get them some. I just don't have any. Pangea's been out for a while. But they get 2 tubes, plenty of plants, but it's not overcrowded. I think we overdo it at times. Some will perch up top, some like this bottom one that is a lot deeper. So it's really up to them, but it allows them to utilize different parts of the enclosure. I love to use fake plants. They're easier to clean. I like the plastic plants over the silk plants. These silk plants will stain from their food and poop, and they start to fade really quickly. These will only last maybe 6 months after cleaning them over and over before they just look ugly and I have to replace them. These plastic plants will last forever and they're so easy to clean. Again, I like to use the Zilla's Jungle Mix. You can see it's still damp from me doing everybody's enclosure a couple days ago. So I love that it holds moisture. These PVC enclosures are awesome because it's been at least 48 hours since I misted and you can still see the mist on the walls. But yeah, I love these enclosures and I'll show you what size animal I typically keep in here. All right, so this is one of my breeding females that just got separated a couple days ago. She has done amazing this year breeding. She has already given me 5 clutches, so she is done. She will probably lay another clutch since I separated her, but she is probably around a 55-gram garg, but she is usually in the mid-60s when she first starts the season. So we are going to let her recoup for the rest of the winter and maybe breed her again next year. We'll have to see. Okay, guys, so I typically only breed pairs or trios. I don't do groups. I just think one, that's plenty for a male each year, and two, it's easier for me to keep an idea on what the lineage is because that's important to me. I like to know that which eggs come from X and which eggs come from Z. So that is the way that I do it. For a pair, I like to do the 18 by 18 by 24s. If I'm doing a smaller trio, like animals that are around 45 to 60, well, not even that big, 45 to 55 grams, I will do a trio and an 18 by 18 by 24. But I prefer just to do my pairs in there. And then if I'm going to do a trio, I have the 18 by 18 by 30s that I prefer to keep in those. But I'm going to let you take a look at one of my setups that has a pair in it, and I'll let you take a look at my trios, and then I'll let you take a look real quick at my 18 by 18 by 30s. All right, so this is one of my 18 by 18 by 24s. These all have pool noodles. I actually foamed these in because of the weight on them and the length across. They're just going to end up bowing and they're not going to hold a hefty garg on them. So these I actually foamed onto the glass so they would stay in place. And then, of course, I can always razor blade them off if I want to. All plants tucked in. They've got plenty of places to hide, especially when they're breeding. I want to make sure that they have full coverage to escape if they're not in the mood, and that will be helpful in keeping down any type of trauma or fighting. Again, cocoa fiber. I also love using the cocoa fiber for their lay boxes. A big cup. It's like an kids applesauce cup that I've cleaned out, and I love using those because they hold plenty of water. But this is pretty much basic. The temperatures in here stay around 80 degrees at all times. Well, maybe between 77 and 80 degrees. Occasionally it'll get up to 82, 85 at the absolute max, but very rarely does it ever get that high. So their temperatures stay around a comfortable room temperature for a human. And it's comfortable for them as well. Now, if we come over here and we look at this 18 by 18 by 24, this one actually has a trio in it. This girl is gravid, so you can tell. That's Dahmer. She's got her big belly. Back here, we've got Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is a pretty beautiful female, and she is probably about 50 grams. And then we got the male up here, Ruin. He's a really beautiful male, and he is probably about 55 grams. She's probably 60. She's probably the biggest female in here. But they've got cork bark here, cork bark back there. They've got plenty of hanging plants, plenty of perches for all of them to be in different areas. And if you take a look at the whole thing from far away, you can see how much room they have, each of them. So this is plenty big enough for a trio if you do need to do a trio, and especially if you're not putting 70 and 80 gram gargs in here. Now, if you are having to do a trio and you do have 70 and 80 gram gargs, I highly recommend you get these 18 by 18 by 30 enclosures. I really, really love these. Again, they've got one perch, two perch. Actually, the ones over there have three. Cork bark in here. This is actually just a male now. I've already took the other two females out, but so he's just going to stay in here for the rest of the season, and I'll put in whatever females I need to next time. But again, we've got the jungle mix, the big water cup, cork bark back there I just showed you. Tons of plants. However, it's not completely cluttered, where these gargs can't figure out where they're going, what they're doing. They can't barely move because they can't move through all the crap. So even though the perches are covered so they can comfortably hide and feel safe, it's not so crowded that it's gross. It's impossible to clean. This guy's super, super shy, but he's a really beautiful boy. That's Ravage. Hi, Ravage. He's got a regenerated tail. His first year breeding, 2-3 years ago, the female towards the end of the season kept eating his tail. Dinher. And Dinher got your hemipene. So now you're just the one penis bandit. He's actually thrown some beautiful neon orange kids. He's a great male. Look at that little face. Look at that little derpy alligator face. Gargs are just incredible. But yeah, so that is how I keep my trios. Again, as you can see here, there is so much room if we had 3 of them in here. Just with him, he looks like a tiny little speck in here. But I love these enclosures. I actually use them for my smaller Europlatus as well, like my Silk Array. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said in the beginning, if you liked it, hit the like button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button, because I will be back next Sunday, hopefully with a new video that you guys will enjoy just as much. If you want to comment, I'd love to hear how you keep your gargoyle geckos, or if there's a difference between your way and my way, or something you might think that might benefit me to make my life a little easier in keeping gargs. I'd love to hear it. So comment below if you've got anything to share on the matter. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Thank you again for watching. Have an amazing week, guys.